I'm Cathures, and here's a hopefully concise video about the meaning of the graves in Five Nights at Freddy's. First, I would like to look at the Lose screen in Help Wanted's Halloween DLC. I want to point out that I don't think the in-character player for the Help Wanted main game and the DLC Halloween hub even need to be the same person. In this DLC, we play various mini-games related to some of the earliest events in FNAF. The hub is surrounded by William-related imagery, down to the house on the hill which resembles the house on the start screen from FNAF 4. This is especially obvious when the rare red sky is present. There's a truck with looming headlights, reminiscent of William's car, and the whole hub is designed after Fall Fest 83, a place only really William and Henry could have been at, as it predates Fazbear Entertainment's massive rise in influence. We see the poster for this event associated with William in FNAF 6. Inside the barn, when we win, we see posters depicting the Man-Wolf poster that also appears in Pizza Simulator, but other times these switch to a terrifying clown. If you're particularly lucky and happen to arrive here when there are 3 clowns on display and then hit them with darts, the whole room turns black light purple and the party banner is replaced by the words "It's me," which, though used by Golden Freddy, are also strongly related to William himself in FNAF 2. The losing screen is different for the Halloween hub than the normal one. This particular failure hub has an enormous dread bear laughing at us with one massive paw atop the gravestone canopy. 7 normal gravestones surround the far stranger central one inside. Looking at the middle gravestone, we can see it glitched with a constantly moving texture. This texture's from Spring Bonnie. Spring Bonnie themselves didn't even feature in Help Wanted, but was removed in an early iteration of the game and replaced by Glitch Trap. This single texture was left behind as it was already part of this gravestone. Now, who do we know who has died incorrectly numerous times and who is inextricably bound to the colour purple? William Afton. So, Dreadbear is a clear nod to Frankenstein's monster. It was even going to be called Franken-Freddy originally, but was changed to align him more with Fredbear's naming convention. Interestingly, the Dread part was added at this point. As an aside, the voice presiding over Security Breach is also called Dread Unit. Frankenstein's monster was made of stitched together dead bodies, which is what the amalgam Afton creates in the novels becomes when he melts the children's animatronics together. We also see this example in Molten Freddy, and then later in Security Breach in the Blob, also known as Tango. The amalgamated souls are an obvious parallel for Frankenstein's monster, and there's no slight implication that William exerts control over them in some way, as he did in the novels. A whole minigame is devoted to adjusting and changing Dreadbear's mind to ensure he does not attack you. This is a good hint as to how William controls the kids, taking advantage of the fact that the dead do forget, as we saw in the movie too. Behind the player, Grim Foxy guards the gate. A Grim is a black dog from folklore who guards churchyards from those who would infiltrate or profane them. Historically, the first individual buried in a graveyard was believed to have had to protect it. So rather than place this burden on someone, a dog would be buried rather than a human. Foxy is guarding this particular burial ground from anyone who would want to interfere with it, and it seems like the player of Help Wanted is trying to do just that. And they succeed. Grim Foxy is also notably spelt with 2-letter M's, strongly relating them to the brothers Grimm, who collected numerous stories from folklore and published them. The series is steeped in folklore and fairy tales, from concrete instances such as Candy Cadet stories, to more extensive parallels and hints throughout the minigames. It's also worth thinking about the Corn Maze minigame in Help Wanted, where the player can hunt down 4 keys from the maze, something that unlocks a secret glitched 5th key. This key in turn opens a hidden trapdoor in the maze's centre. allowing the player to retrieve a strange mask. The player has the same breathing sound as FNAF 2 did when they put it on. I think the player in FNAF 2 is likely William Afton as well. In Security Breach, we have a few cutouts from Help Wanted and Rockstar Row. By them is a broken open grave. There's also Shadow Bonnie, pleased in a cutout, escaping from his confines. Throughout Security Breach, we do what we know William did in the games and novels, which is stitch additional animatronics, or at least their parts, onto Glamrock Freddy, until by the end of the game, he too is an amalgam of parts, like Golden Freddy. And in Ruin, Glamrock Bonnie is hidden backstage in Bonnie Bowl, surrounded by 4 wet floor bots. The wet floor bots are tied to the children's souls in very apparent ways. Bonnie's eyes at this point are lit up precisely like Dreadbear's eyes, which might mean that he's being possessed by Dreadbear, who I think represents Golden Freddy, and the children acting as his wardens. Cassie thinks she's only released the Mimic, but in the true hidden ending of Ruin, I think she also releases William from his captivity. Cassie appears to disable the Mexus system throughout the game, but upon arrival, the screen she's presented with implies the security is off already. She switches it back on, and we see the entity pulled back into it, suggesting that whatever is keeping him there is still functional. It theoretically won't be functional once she disables the wet floor bots. In Security Breach, we see Burntrap emerge from his charging station like a vampire emerging from his coffin, and it really wouldn't be the first time we've seen William related to a vampire either.
Another dramatic entry in the lives of Vlad and his distressed mistress. Where will they go? What will they do? All of that and more happening now.
Clara, I tell you, the baby isn't mine!
Count, I tell you that it is! You're the only vampire I've ever loved! And the baby turns his bottles into powdered milk!
One of the achievements in Help Wanted 2 is called The Immortal and the Restless, and Help Wanted 2 is also full of imagery around graves, digital interference, and other hints that something more significant is going on. We see this most clearly in the boat ride minigame, where going off the track takes us an AR, where Jackal Moon pursues us. One of the routes is through a graveyard, where we see several gravestones along the way that are pretty clear nods to someone coming back digitally from the dead. We also see a parallel of the image from Help Wanted 1 of the graveyard with Dreadbear in the graves, and the final Princess Quest ending, where beneath the Guardian graves overhead in the courtyard lies a box containing a Bonnie mask. The player, likely William Afton, finds this amusingly familiar. They deal with the final Guardian at the gate and trade them a mask for the Glitch Trap plushie. However, doesn't this mean they still have a mask to use, if they still have the Bonnie mask? The ending where Vanny seems to destroy Glitch Trap is called Consequences, and mentions the virus in the system has been neutralised. But I think we've seen Consequences fail before in Ultimate Custom Night, and with this secret Bonnie mask, I think they might fail again. So as you can see, I find the graves very interesting, and they appear in multiple games. I think taking them into account, I don't think it's even remotely out there or wild to believe that William's created Dark Reflection, or both, have in some way returned from the dead.